Okay, so originally I was just planning on doing another film breakdown video, kind of just breaking down what happened on the Pittsburgh game. But due to recent events, right, I think we have all seen our fair share and just flat out enough of people trying to break down film or whatever footage they can have to get to the bottom of this situation. And the situation is a situation I've been talking about for weeks. The Browns and Baker Mayfield and Odell's inability to kind of get things in sync. Now, some of these things are on Baker. Some of these things are on the coaching staff. Some of these things are, quite frankly, on the offensive coordinator and everybody else involved. Sometimes it's Odell, but honestly, from my assessment, it seems to be Odell less often than it is the other things, just because Odell is not really getting the amount of targets to really know if it's his fault. He has had some drops. I'm not saying he's been flawless, but you can see where the frustration would be for a player in that situation. But nonetheless, I don't want this video or this conversation or my conversation of this situation to just be pointing the finger at somebody and saying they're to blame and pointing the mob to those people. I am going to try to do something that I know is not normally what you do in a conversation about the Cleveland Browns, about Odell Beckham or Baker Mayfield. I'm going to try to have a nuanced conversation about this subject. Now, let's talk about the first part of this, right? Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham. What in the world is going on there between those two? Now, we'll throw out the lack of design targets, the lack of design plays, all those things. That we'll leave that conversation for later in this video. I'm just going to talk about when it is that Baker does target Odell. Why are these targets usually unsuccessful? Sometimes it is Odell. Like sometimes Odell is dropping easy passes. But a lot of the times, Baker's smoking some throws more often than it's not. And it's really interesting because he doesn't really have the same issues at this level that he has with other wide receivers. This just seems like a chemistry thing. Every time Baker breaks the pocket, Baker expects Odell to come back to the football on a back shoulder throw. Odell thinks that he can get open down the field. They never seem to be in sync when it comes to those situations. If Baker is late on the ball, like I saw the play that was being thrown around there on social media where Baker threw a ball that was off target down the middle of the seam, that appeared to be off target down the middle of the seam to Odell. Odell had to come back, put an arm on it, and then didn't catch it. Some people are saying, oh, Odell's being soft for not wanting to go through over the middle. Some people are saying Baker should be on target and on time. The truth about that play is Baker was late on the throw, right? Like Baker was late. And look, it's okay to be late. He makes an adjustment to throw that ball back shoulder because he sees number 20 on the Steelers. I don't know who that is, but number 20 creeping into the play. So he goes back shoulder there, probably thinking he's protecting Odell, also thinking that Odell's going to know that he goes back shoulder because for Baker Mayfield, his instinct has always been to go back shoulder. Odell on that play sees number 20 and thinks, I can just run over top. Baker can float me this ball over top, and I'm still going to be able to make this play because if I have to turn around, I could just make a play with the ball in the air. Let me tell you something. Both dudes have the right answer on that play. Baker was right to go back shoulder. That could have worked if they had chemistry. What Odell was thinking, just getting the ball floated over top and jumping over the guy once he's planted, could have worked if they're on the same page, but they're giving the right answers, but they're not doing it at the same time, which is leading to a ton of miscommunication. And that's really what it's been throughout this whole era of Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham. It's been two dudes who just can't get it right together for whatever reason. One dude goes left, the other dude goes right. One dude goes up, the other dude goes down. They don't seem to have a good eye for when each other should be looking for each other. Case in point, like when Baker breaks the pocket and scrambles, he barely looks for Odell. And that tells me that just from what I can infer from it from a football perspective, not saying I know any of these things definitively, but that tells me that between the two of them, there is not a lot of trust when it comes to football. I don't know what their personal relationship outside of football is, but it just tells me that, between the two of them, when it comes to football, when it comes to knowing where that football is going to go, there is not that trust. For whatever reason, Baker has more trust when he's throwing to Donovan Peoples-Jones and Jarvis Landry and Rashard Higgins. And it shows because one of the things I've been complaining about is Baker not giving dudes 50-50 balls. He does not like to give Odell 50-50 balls. He does not like to give Odell, make a play on it balls. Like they just don't trust each other. And then when Baker throws a ball up, Odell is not really as willing to kind of go up there and get it because he just doesn't trust where the ball is going to be placed. Like it just does seem like these two dudes don't trust each other. Now, what can you do to remedy that? When it comes to football, well, more reps tend to remedy something like that, right? If you have a lack of trust, sometimes that lack of trust can be because of a lack of familiarity with, the wide receiver or the quarterback. That could be it. I don't know if that's it, to be honest with you. Like, I know that they have not been targeting Odell enough. I have said this in many of my videos, but on that note, it seems like if that was the issue, familiarity, there has been enough time to be able to rectify that, right? This is not like Odell just got traded this year. He's been on the team for 3 years. So it doesn't seem to me like that's going to be something that's going to solely rectify this issue. That brings me to the coaching staff. Now, Baker Mayfield deserves some blame in this pie, right? I think the whole situation with Odell deserves blame. And I know some people are like, well, where's Odell's blame in this? Right now, we're talking about why Odell is being underutilized. We can't blame Odell for that when we know that if you watch the tape, and there's a reason why. If you ask anybody who's watched the tape, like legitimately good at watching the tape, they'll tell you Odell's getting open. Like it's not a secret that All 22 video went viral because it's been true. I've been telling you guys for like a month and a half, Odell's still getting open. Some of y'all didn't want to believe me when I said that, but it's true. And it's been thrown to the forefront right now with all the stuff going on. But let's talk about what the Browns can do to kind of fix this situation. And this is on the coaching staff, Alex Van Pelt and Kevin Stefanski. Now, why do I say that? Why is it that I think that they're the biggest contributor to this problem? Now, I don't know what read or where on the progressions they're putting Odell versus all of the other receivers, right? But I do know that when I watch the Browns play, when I watch them on film, I do notice that they run more design plays for Demetric Felton and Anthony Schwartz than they do for Odell Beckham. That's an issue. I do know when I watch the Browns play, I've seen them have an emphasis on David Njoku getting the ball early. I've seen them have an emphasis on getting Jarvis Landry the ball. I've seen them have emphasis on getting Nick Chubb the ball. Like, they do a good job of getting emphasis, but very rarely is the game plan to get Odell the ball, right? It's only in it's only in the games where he returns from injury. Like, that's where they have the emphasis on getting him the ball. Other than that, it seems like they use him as a decoy. They put him on the back end of the field. They make him the only wide receiver in a 3 tight end set. Or sometimes, for whatever reason, they sub Odell out to put in Anthony Schwartz to be the only wide receiver in a 3-man tight end set. And this is my main point when it comes to the whole Odell Beckham thing and why this has been so weird. One, it's time to either commit to the ideal of having Odell on your roster or not, right? Like, either you're going to use this dude as a number 1 wide receiver and give him targets and give him the ball and design plays for him, and I would honestly think make your offense better and make your quarterback better in doing so, because number 1 wide receivers usually tend to do that for your quarterback because they tend to be a good safety valve for them. And if you don't want to do that, okay, you just trade them. Now, the trade deadline is passed. They clearly have not traded Odell Beckham, so that's not happening at least this year. So what do you do in the meantime? In my opinion, I think you probably need to acknowledge that whatever you've been doing on offense for the last 8 weeks really ain't been working. What have I talked about all week, right? The offense has looked terrible since like the third quarter of the Kansas City football game. So with Odell, without Odell, the offense has been pretty iffy, inconsistent, and just flat awful at times. So if that is the case, you have to realize that literally everything that you have done in this first half of the season can be thrown out because it has not worked. So why not at this point try to have more emphasis on getting the ball to Odell? Because you know what? It's the one thing you haven't tried to do. Why is 34 targets the most target a single receiver has on this team? Why does Kareem Hunt have the most receiving yards on a team that employs two $14 million wide receivers and a $10 million tight end? Why aren't the targets going that way? Why are we always playing the safest way when it comes to the passing game? This goes on to the coaching staff. If you look at the tape and you see these players' reactions, not celebrating at the touchdowns, not really feeling great, not having much fun with this offense, it's honestly a natural reaction because we're not having fun watching this offense. Why would they have fun playing in this offense? It has become predictable. It has become way too reliant on the run. They play every game now like they're up 14, but they're down by 10. It doesn't make sense why the offense looks like this. And honestly, it's disappointing because I expected a lot more out of Kevin Stefanski. So when it comes to this Odell situation, where is the blame going? Now, there are going to be some people who are not liking how Odell is handling this. I don't know specifically if Odell prompted LeBron to tweet things or his daddy to tweet things. I don't know what's going on, but I think he was clearly frustrated after that Steelers game, and he probably communicated that with some people who then tweeted something in the regards of what we saw. It's not a mistake that all this stuff came out in one day on the trade deadline, right? Like, that is something that is not a mistake. Like, it was clearly an attempt to get out of town. It seems like from everything that you could read, unless you want to be naive about the situation, that this was an attempt to get out of town for Odell Beckham, to get out of this situation because he's not happy with this situation. Now, there are two things you can do in that situation: get rid of the player or rectify the situation. The Browns offense at this point of the year, after only scoring 10 points at Pittsburgh, really not at the point to where they could just be letting players go. So I understand why they didn't trade him. But if you're not going to trade him, then the coaching staff has to step up. And that's where my last point is. This month, like, no more excuses, man. Like, there's no more excuses for this month. Either you get it together offensively or you don't, right? Like, and he's not going to get, Kevin and Alex Van Pelt, they ain't going to get fired at the end of this year. But they'll be on the hot seat next year if this season falls apart in November again. And that's really what it comes down to. This month of November, all this frustration, you need to get this stuff together. They need to figure out ways to make the play calling more dynamic, to be less predictable, and to actually use the playmakers that you have on the roster sufficiently. Odell has not been used sufficiently. I don't care if you like him or not. I think that's an objective truth. Like, you have had Odell on the roster, paying him a lot of money to not give him a lot of targets. So that has been an issue. Kevin has to figure that out. Alex Van Pelt has to figure that out. That is on the offensive staff to figure those things out. If you're Baker Mayfield, why is it that you're missing Odell so often? Like, you really have to ask yourself that question. Why is it that Odell is open all the time and you can't find him? Is it because of something that you're doing? Is it because of something that they're telling you to do? Really figure out that question, because that really should be answered. It shouldn't be brushed off. It shouldn't be ignored. It shouldn't be thrown away or laughed at, or however you want to react to it at the press conference when somebody inevitably asks that question. Like, it should legitimately have a thorough answer, not publicly, but for you personally. What is it that makes it that Odell could be open as much as he is on tape and you ain't hitting him? And it is at a point here to where it makes you question Baker's ability to carry this team going forward, because it's so egregious sometimes how open Odell could be and how Baker just doesn't see him at times. So what is the answer to that question? Are you just not capable of seeing the whole field? Are you not capable of making the throws that Odell is asking you to make when he gets open on a scramble drill? Or are you not coached to make those throws, to make those progressions, and to make those reads? You got to find out the answer to that, right? Because that's something that needs to be answered before you get Baker any extension money. And I'm as big as a Baker Mayfield guy as there has been on this platform. So that question needs to be answered. The Browns have a ton of questions to answer, and they don't have a ton of time to figure it out. But that is my thoughts on this Odell Baker situation. Since this conversation has been so focused on what everybody else is not doing right, what I want to focus on, the question I want to ask you in the comment section is, what do you feel like could be done between Baker Mayfield, Kevin Stefanski, Alex Van Pelt, and Odell Beckham working together collectively, not getting rid of one of the parties, working together collectively to improve this situation for everybody involved? Because I think the one consensus we can come to about this conversation is that offensively, this has not been working. The Browns offense, just as a whole, whatever they're doing, how they're calling plays, it has not been working for anybody. So what can those three do, the big playmakers in the passing game, do to make something happen when nothing has been happening so far? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. But again, guys, have a great day. Have a good night.